I literally lost everything that I had put my value into in a matter of 2 days. Ready to hear a story of resilience, courage, and self-love? Then you've come to the right place. Come along and listen to one of my biggest struggles and how I managed to turn it all around and learn to love myself without apology. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Adriana Santos, and this is the Loving My Wild podcast, a show where we dive deep into the messy journey of self-discovery, self-worth, and living life unapologetically. From heartfelt conversations that make you feel seen and expert advice that lights up your path, together we'll embrace the chaos of life, laugh about our quirks, and journey towards self-love. This is Loving My Wild. Come on in. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Adriana, a certified hypnotherapist, and this is the Loving My Wild podcast, a podcast dedicated to supporting you in mastering the art of self-awareness and self-love. Every episode, we're talking about topics that help us understand how to unravel the different parts of ourselves so that we can show up for our life as our best selves. And today, I'm really excited, scared, nervous, all of it, to be sharing a special story with you, my story. When I first launched this podcast 3 years ago, I made an episode about how I had come from a place of feeling unloved and unworthy to one where I was fully embracing my journey and loving myself. And that episode was my first episode, actually, and it was called My Journey to Fill the Void. And it was really a hit with my listeners. And when I started to relaunch the podcast now, I knew that it was important for me to include an episode that shared my story and my background. One, because I personally love hearing other people's stories. I think it's so important because it grounds us in the complexities and the chaos of life. And it makes us feel like we're not alone if we're going through those same struggles or emotional turmoil or whatever it is. And sometimes it's just really helpful to know that other people are dealing with their own stuff, right? Like that in and of itself makes us feel like we're not alone. And two, I think it's important to share my journey with my audience because I think it's a good testament to, even if you're in the thick of things, there is a sunny day waiting for you on the other end. And I think my biggest value is finding the lesson in life's shittiest moments. And I think that that's not something that I've always been able to do, but it's something that I've really challenged myself to do throughout my own journey. And I think that it's one of my strong suits, to be honest. And I want to help everyone else get to that same place. I want other people to be able to look at what they're going through and see it as just either a stepping stone, a chapter, a moment in their life, and learn to look at it in either a positive light or as a lesson or a way to grow or whatever it is. I feel really passionate about pulling the lessons out of things. And so when I sat down to record this episode that had my story, I realized I was regurgitating the same story. And the thing is that the story I was telling now was different because now that same story was 3 years old. And so much time had passed, so much life had passed, and I've done so much healing and work on myself, and I'm truly a different person than who I was at that time. And I felt like I was doing a disservice to that part of my story. And it's one thing to hear someone's story when they've had 3 years to heal from it, and it's a totally different thing to hear it when someone had just gotten out of the storm. And I think that's why people resonated with it so much in the way that they did, was because I think you can hear my raw emotion in it. And so I sat down to record this episode, and I was just like, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So I decided to, instead of re-recording it, I'm just going to play that episode for you so that you can feel the same experience that so many felt before. And recording this episode 3 years ago was a huge turning point in my life, and it had a profound impact on me as well as the listeners who heard it. And that episode really meant so much to me, and the thought of it not existing in the world was just something I couldn't come to terms with. So that's kind of why I'm doing it this way. And then I'm going to add an update at the end. So I'll play the recording just as it was originally released, and then I'll pop in at the end to give you some updates or my take on listening back to it. Kind of like my version of After the Final Rose ceremony for all my Bachelor fans. So without further ado, here is the original My Journey to Fill the Void, my story, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello, friends, family, and strangers. Welcome. Whew, holy shit. Do you have any idea how excited I am for this and how nervous? I said this the other day, that this podcast and blog are like taking every single one of my fears and my limiting beliefs, throwing them into a pot, stirring them up real good, and then force feeding it to me. But I know that my next season of life is on the other side of conquering these fears. So here I am, practicing what I preach. So welcome to episode number 1. This episode is going to be a little intro about me, my life, my story, my goals, just kind of setting the framework for those who may not know me and how I got here. So let's get into it. All right, my story. Where do I begin? Guys, it has been a journey. It's been a long road to even get to this point where I am sitting in front of a microphone using my voice to tell my story is wild. A year ago, this wouldn't have even lived in my dreams, because that's how small I was playing in my life. So I guess you could say I had a pretty normal childhood. I had 2 parents who worked their butt off to give me a life that they never had. I went to a public high school, and that was okay. I went out of state to college, and that was wild. And I definitely got into a lot of nonsense then. But growing up, there was always this overwhelming sense that I couldn't have the things that I wanted. I wanted to play sports so badly. I want to go to birthday parties, go to Disney Worlds, have a Game Boy. I wasn't given those opportunities and those experiences that I saw other kids having, because my parents, as I said, were working their butts off, and their number one priority was making sure we had a roof over our head and food on our table. And that was something that they weren't fortunate enough to have themselves growing up. And as an adult, now I can appreciate that on so many levels. But as a 7-year-old who is the only one at camp without a Game Boy to play Pokemon on, I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand why other kids were having experiences that I wasn't able to. And so because of that, I took on this belief that I wasn't good enough to have the things that I wanted. And so that kind of followed me around. And growing up, it didn't matter what I was doing, where I was, who I was with. There was always this sense that something was missing. There was this hole that I felt like I wanted to numb and fill. And to be honest, it was there for as long as I could remember. I would distract myself with either going out or hours on the computer, perfecting my AIM profile or whatever it was that I was into at that age. But I sure as hell wasn't telling anyone that I felt that way. And that feeling finally went away when I got into a serious relationship in my 20s. It was wild. It was magical, sparks flying. It felt like my world was finally illuminated, like every love song and rom-com came to life. And I 100% felt like I found someone who completed me. And that's because that's exactly what he did. He completed me because I was not whole. I didn't feel like I was enough with myself exactly as I was. Of course, I didn't know this at the time. I wasn't like, yes, I have low self-esteem, so I choose you to fix me. It wasn't like that. It just felt like a fairy tale. And because that's how love is portrayed in the movies and songs and books and the media we consume, I thought that I hit the jackpot. And so when we got engaged 3 years later, to me, it was like the ultimate stamp of like, I'm worthy. I'm enough. Like, yes, I'm finally lovable. And again, this was all subconscious. This is me reflecting back on my experience. So in the moment, it just felt like I was getting my happily ever after. That life that society makes us feel like we need to strive for. I felt like I was right on track. And when we bought our beautiful home at 24 and we got a dog and we're planning a wedding, it felt like everything was coming together. And my gosh, I thought that I could never be happier than in those moments until the light burned out and things got rocky. When you're driving and you have to slam on the brakes and your whole body like jolts forward and for a half a second you think you're gonna fly through the windshields? Yep, that's how I felt at this point in my life when things started to go south. Up until that point, my future looked crystal clear. So the first sight of danger, I lost it. I was a mess. And that's because I had no sense of self. It was a very codependent relationship. I was him, he was me, and together I felt complete. I literally did not know who I was outside of the relationship. And I didn't realize how much my worth was wrapped up into it until I was faced with the thought of it possibly ending. So naturally, when things got rocky, it completely destroyed me. Like completely, because my identity was wrapped in this life that I was creating. And it wasn't until things got like real freaking rocky that I finally asked for help and went to go see a therapist. And I mean, let's be honest, the main reason I went to go see a therapist was because the gaslighting I was experiencing made me believe that there was something wrong with me. And with no sense of self, I believed it. And that was my lowest point. The thought of losing the relationship, the house, the life that we were creating, the life that people knew we were creating was terrifying. And that last part is really important because of how much shame I felt at the thought of people finding out that our engagement might not work out. Like, guys, if there was a shame meter to measure how much shame I felt, that thing would have been shattered, just completely shattered. I felt so much shame that I literally was looking to move out of the country. Out of the country because I thought that if I could flee, then, maybe people would forget that we were a thing and I wouldn't have to face it. And that's because society makes us believe that we are our relationships. And we have bought into this lie that in order to have a happy life, you have to have the marriage, the family of 4 with the cute portraits on the wall, and the Pinterest-worthy house, and the career that makes you never want to question money again. And on the outside, I had all of that. So to face a reality where all of those things were stripped away from me, it was terrifying. And that's when I started to venture back home to myself, to fill up that hole that I ran from all of those years. And I didn't know it growing up, and I didn't know it until 2 years ago, that void I felt was love that needed to radiate for myself. It was self-esteem and confidence. It was trust in myself, validating my own experience, putting myself first, having my own back, all of which I was lacking. And I got really freaking good at masking also. That hole was begging to be filled with love, but it was a love that needed to come from me. So thanks to therapy, I was able to start to cultivate a better relationship with myself. I started to learn about boundaries and how many of mine were actually being crossed. I learned about my values, limiting beliefs, the importance of self-care. I learned how to communicate in a healthy way. I learned what was holding me back in life. I learned how much of a perfectionist I am and where that stems from, how I want to be spoken to. I learned just how deep my people-pleasing tendencies are and how I live to please my parents instead of living to please myself. I learned how I wanted and didn't want to be treated. And I learned what I wanted my life to look like, and it wasn't looking the way that I wanted it to. So once I started to build up my self-worth, I made some massive changes in my life. And unfortunately, the relationship, it wasn't serving me anymore. And we talked and mutually agreed to end the engagement. And I left behind the house that I spent 2 years making into a home. And that same weekend, I left a job that I dreamed of because it was no longer fulfilling me. I literally lost everything that I had put my value into in a matter of 2 days. It was absolutely the hardest thing I have ever had to go through. Feeling that lost, that confused, I felt like I had no direction, and the need to flee the country was still very prevalent, but it made it a little bit easier knowing that there was something better out there for me and that I was no longer going to settle for a life that wasn't serving me. Now, I realize all those things I missed out on growing up, the sports, the birthday parties, the vacations, those were all missed opportunities for me to come into my identity, for me to come into who I am as a person, to learn what I liked, what I didn't like, to pick up hobbies and learn important skills, to develop a relationship with myself. Instead, I took on what my parents wanted and what society wanted me to be. And I carried on through life, shape-shifting into who I needed to be in order to be accepted and to fit in. And that's what I was doing in every area of my life. I was walking myself into a life that I didn't actually want, and I had no idea. That's the craziest part to me. I was so blinded that I literally had no idea. And that's why I'm so passionate about putting my story out there now, because I just know how many people are living out a life that their subconscious is controlling instead of what they actually want. I see it all the freaking time. I mean, probably 95% of the people I come into contact with. And I think it's because we don't know any better. We aren't taught to be self-aware. We aren't taught these life skills in school. And I know all you math teachers are going to be pissed at me for saying this, but I just think learning about self-worth is a shit ton more useful than learning about the quadratic formula. And I don't know, I would say that learning about self-esteem is just as useful as learning about personal finances. Because without having self-worth, we can get ourselves into some pretty shitty situations without even knowing it. And I know this can sound like I'm a talking Pinterest board, but I truly believe self-worth is the foundation to living a fulfilling life. And it actually hurts. It hurts to see how little that exists in our society. Everyone is running around trying to mask their traumas and fill the voids that they feel with relationships, drugs, alcohol, scrolling, and falling into mediocre lives because they are too afraid to step into their self-worth. And that was me. I was too scared. But now that I'm 2 years into my self-love journey, I realize that I can give myself everything that I need. I can give myself that love that I crave, the gifts that I want, the validation that I seek. I don't need somebody else to tell me that I'm worthy or that I'm enough, because I work on telling myself that every single day. Everything that I want externally, whether it's from another person or a thing, it's already inside of me. And life is so much brighter because I don't need anything from anyone anymore. I give myself everything that I need. And that doesn't mean that my life is boring or that I don't have friends or that I don't want connection. It means that I'm always filling up my own cup. And someone else's inability to show up for me is no reflection of my self-worth. And that to me is utter freedom. And here's the thing, if you take away anything from this, please let it be that self-love is not a one-stop shop. It's not something you arrive at and you throw in the towel and you go on your merry way and you live in your gorgeous house on a farm and sing kumbaya with your neighbors. It's something that you need to work at every day. And it's just like any other relationship. You know, when you're in a romantic relationship, you experience conflict. You have the highs and the lows, but you show up for that person every single day. And your relationship with yourself is no different. So treat yourself like you would treat your partner. And know that self-love is not a destination. And, okay, here's another thing. This doesn't just go for people who are single. In fact, I almost think people in relationships need this more, because I can't tell you how many people do not prioritize themselves when they're in a relationship. How many people lose themselves once they're paired with another person? Which, I mean, no shame, that was me, I get it. But all of that to say that the journey to finding your self-worth is for everyone. And I wish I had someone talking about all of this when I was in the trenches. So that's why I'm here now. I really just needed a space where I can vocalize my perspective and process my thoughts. I have a lot of things to say about the things that I've learned, and I'm finding that I learn best for myself when I'm sharing with other people. So we're going to learn and grow together in this little corner of the internet. And with this podcast, I'll be talking about what it looks like to shed those layers that are no longer serving you. So that way you can step into the person you want to be. You know, the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the fears, which is my favorite topic, relationships, which is another favorite, emotions, journaling, self-talk, self-care. You get the point. And I hope that sharing my story along the way helps you feel a little less alone, because if I've learned anything on my journey, It's that the very thing that makes us all the same is that we all feel the same emotions. And if we can all be a little bit more vulnerable in sharing those emotions, we can start to see that we're really not all that different from each other. So I hope to keep these episodes short, sweet, and to the point. I get it. I know you have a million other things you want to be doing. And I don't want to be that person who's keeping you away from your Instagram scrolling or learning your new TikTok dances. But I do know that the life you have always craved is on the other side of finding your self-worth. And I promise doing this work is so challenging, but it is so worth it. I promise you. So I'll keep showing up if you keep tuning in, and we will figure out how to get through this life together. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and if you want more content, please go to my website, lovingmywild.com, or visit me on Instagram at lovingmywild. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Aw, baby Adriana. Oh man, I listened to that for the first time since I recorded that just now. So this is my true, authentic reaction to hearing that back again. And um, it's pretty crazy because I thought that I had it all figured out, and I had a lot figured out. I was definitely onto something there, but I think that a part of me thought that like I wasn't going to experience challenges and I was in this place that I was feeling so empowered that nothing could take me down. And I think that I was very humbled that life still goes on. There are still challenges, and I definitely faced a good amount of ups and downs since then. And I've learned that through that, through that lesson of not expecting challenges and thinking that if I acted perfectly, then I could be void of challenges in my life. I think learning even that lesson is really powerful because I think that it's almost a form of perfectionism, right? It's like, if I just act perfectly, my life will go perfectly. And I think even that is really unresourceful thinking. And what benefits us more is having the trust that we can handle whatever goes through us because the ups and downs are inevitable. They will happen. And it's not about creating a life that has no ups and downs, but creating a sense of self that can barrel through anything that comes our way. And I think that the biggest thing that I learned in that time period, now looking back and reflecting back on it, I think the biggest thing that I learned and that really empowered me, that has stayed with me every single day since then, was that life is made up of our own choices and that we create meaning in our life through those choices. And I think that is one of those, giant life lessons for me. I think that, we're all placed on this world to learn certain lessons, like these lessons that will shape our life. And I think that was one of them, was that we aren't a victim to our circumstances. We have choices in every moment. And what makes our life meaningful is those choices. And I think that I learned that way back then, 3 years ago, or whenever I was going through, that hot mess express of stuff. And that's something that I've carried with me. And it's just become an innate part of who I am now. And that's how I approach every single day. And it's a part of me that I'm really, really, really proud of. And a part of me that I truly, really do love. And that's one of the things that I try to implement and show my clients too, is that your life is your choice. It's made up of your choices, and it doesn't matter really what happens, but it matters how you react to it and how you choose to grow from it and grow through it. And once we figure that lesson out, then you'll notice that life gets a little lighter and a little easier. And not easier in the sense of nothing will happen to you, but you just learn how to make lemonade from the lemons, essentially. So that's kind of my reaction. I'm so proud of little Adriana, although it is kind of funny at the end of that. I was like, I'll keep showing up if you do or whatever. And I had so many fears and so much fear of rejection, fear of failure, and that's ultimately what made me stop showing up. But I was so hopeful in the moment, and it's pretty cool actually recording this now and just feeling so different, just feeling internally just so different about myself from that point. And knowing that I'm recording this from a place of knowing that I have something to share and knowing that it's not going to be perfect, and like this true innate knowing that I don't actually know what I'm doing when I'm recording this, meaning like I don't know if people are going to like it. I don't know if it'll resonate with people. I have no idea, and that doesn't matter. That I think that's the key point. Is before I was trying so hard to create something that people would like, and now I'm just trying to be messy as I can so that I can learn from the mess. And that's not something that I've perfected. Me showing up here is my conscious act of trying to learn that. So it's just really cool to think back to where I was at that point and how I am now. And oh man, that feeling that I talked about, that no one really loved me, had been planted and became ingrained in my belief system. And that's something that hasn't gone away. It's still something that I struggle with today. And the thing is now that I try to remember that it's a part of me. And the goal isn't to get rid of that part, but to learn how to give it less meaning and quiet it when I need to and learn from it when I need to and work with it as a part of me. And so that's just another reflection that I've had. But needless to say, and I say that because so many of us want to work through things to get rid of those parts of us, but we don't get rid of them. We learn to love them, we learn to accept them, we learn to work with them. And so anyway, now that we've taken a look back at where I was 3 years ago, let's talk about where I've been lately, because I do feel really disconnected from that story that I just shared. Not disconnected because it is a part of me, but I've just healed so much from that. I'm at such a different point in my life that it's important to also share where I'm at now. So shortly after that episode was released, I went back to school to become a certified hypnotherapist, which is funny because I didn't realize I had talked about the subconscious mind on that episode, but clearly my obsession for the subconscious mind was still really alive, or was alive even back then. And so I finally took the jump to learn more about it. And so I became a certified hypnotherapist. I started working with one-on-one clients in a program that I created for people who want to become the best version of themselves. And my mission with my sessions is to help people understand that the power of their thoughts, feelings, words, beliefs, all of that, how they can use those things to create positive change in their life and in their world, which you could see is so tied with the lesson that I learned from that episode that I recorded and everything that I had gone through. It's truly what lights me up. It's truly where I feel the most meaning and fulfillment in my life, is helping people understand that same belief, that same lesson, that same way of being. And so now I am in my final year of school and I'm studying mind and body psychology. And after this year, I'll be a clinical hypnotherapist. So that's so exciting. And now I'm learning about how to support people through deep healing and reflection. Whereas my first year, I learned about the subconscious mind and how the things that we pick up throughout our life shape how we ultimately act and think and behave and all of that. And now I'm learning how to support people on a deeper level. And the journey of going back to school and learning all of this has been really humbling and it's been challenging, but I feel like I'm transitioning into this new role with more clarity than ever before. And it's never felt more aligned than it does now. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be doing this. It fuels me, it fills me up. I love it with every ounce of my being. And then, of course, I'm still walking down the path of personal growth and development, something that I do believe that is an ongoing process for all of us. And of course, since that episode, there was a lot of mess along the way, which I'm gonna put that on my tombstone. Embracing the mess along the way. Since then, I truly did take life into my own hands and I started living for myself. And I got into a new relationship. I moved out of state. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and then I moved to Houston, which, by the way, let me just tell this quick story. Before I had gotten into a new relationship, I was journaling. I was on a trip. I was on a solo trip to Bozeman, Montana, and I was journaling about what I wanted my life to look like. And I wrote about how I wanted to move out of state and I wanted to experience the world. I wanted to experience new places to live and that I wanted to start in Charleston. And I kind of like closed the journal and never thought about it again. I just kind of writing in the moment. And then I got into a new relationship and still didn't think about it. And because of his job, he was moving to Charleston and I agreed to move. And I, I think it was a couple months into living at Charleston where I found my old journal and I was going through it and I read that almost to the day, exactly a year before, I had written that I wanted to move out of state and I wanted to experience, just living in different parts of the United States and meeting people and all of this stuff. And I wanted to start in Charleston and it's so crazy. It's so crazy. I don't know, my mind is still blown. But yeah, so then I moved to Houston and I'm in Houston right now. And since then, I also got a new puppy. Her name is Brody. I can't say it too loud. She's sleeping next to me. And if I said it too loud, she'd wake up and start to try to, like, I don't know, play with me and distract me as she does. She'd probably get the zoomies pretty bad. And then I also like I said, I went back to school and that's been taking up a lot of my time, but it's been so fulfilling. And a lot of my biggest struggles since that episode has been learning how I judge myself and also others. And this is something that I'm kind of working through right now is accepting myself fully, which helps me accept other people's differences fully and then being empathetic in that. So seeing other people's uniquenesses and trying to allow that to help me embrace my uniqueness and just allowing people to be who they are, allowing myself to be who I am fully, authentically, wholeheartedly. And emotions. Emotions have been my biggest challenge. And by biggest challenge, I mean like seriously, my biggest challenge. It's been something that has been a work in progress for probably 2.5 years now. And what I mean by that is allowing people to have their own emotional experience without feeling personally responsible for it. Allowing myself to have full emotional experiences without judging myself for it. And all of this comes because I realize that when I judge or invalidate people's experiences based on my own beliefs or ideas on how people should act, that it creates disconnection. And that's not what I want. I want more connection. I want to feel fully connected to myself and with other people. So I'm learning to be more accepting and open to other people and other people's opinions and differences and what their subjective reality is. So, just being honest, that's what is currently going on in my own personal growth journey currently. Yeah. I'm sure next week it'll be something else, but that seems to be the overarching theme as of lately is how do I be more empathetic? How do I let people express themselves how they want to without feeling triggered? And I've worked through so much of this and I do feel so much more connected to life and people and a community. So I am proud of myself for how far I've come, but I want to feel more connected. I know that some of the ways I shut off creates disconnection for me, and I don't want that. So that's a little 411 about what's going on. Yeah. So I think the one thing since that episode is that even through all of the ups and downs, I always invested in myself. And I think that pretty much sums up how I've tried living my life the last few years is that, yes, I've fallen off the path many times with being kind to myself or, allowing myself to just be. And I've done things that weren't aligned with the version of myself that I want to be. But I continued to show up for myself, for my life. Always, always, always holding the vision of who I wanted to be in the forefront of my mind and choosing every single moment to move towards that version and that vision of myself every single day. That has been just ingrained in my being. And despite the high highs and the low lows that I've experienced since that episode, the only thing that hasn't changed, the main constant in my life has been my commitment to myself. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do with my clients, whether it be learning how to manifest their desires or setting healthy boundaries. At the end of all of the work that we do, what we're working on is a deeper love for themselves and the assurance that they have their own back. And that's what I love so much about the work that I do is that I'm helping people cultivate their own self-love and create meaning in their life by learning who they are, letting go of who they're not, and stepping into their authentic selves wholeheartedly and effortlessly and easily. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this little bit that now more than ever, it's so important to invest in yourself and prioritize you in your life. So take the time to learn about yourself, write down your thoughts, explore what makes you come alive, pick up a new hobby that keeps you centered, surround yourself with people who uplift you and help you see yourself in a positive light. Do all of it. The changes that you want to make in your life are doable. I promise you they're doable. You are not the challenges you've been faced with. And no matter what you've been through, your future is waiting for you to claim it. And just know with every ounce of your being that you are worthy of the life you want. You are capable of anything you put your mind to, and there is truly no limit to what you can achieve. Self-love, like I said at the end of the episode that I shared, I knew this 3 years ago and I will preach it now. Self-love is an ongoing journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not even something that we can arrive at. Self-love is the act. It's the act of choosing ourselves over and over and over again. The act of choosing ourselves when we feel guilty that we did something that doesn't align with our values, we choose ourselves. Self-love is the act of deciding that your life and your vision for your future is so important that you're going to give your all every single day. That is self-love. Self-love is not this destination that we arrive at and then all of a sudden our life is rainbows and butterflies and this magical experience. It's not that. Self-love is the intentional act of every single day, every single moment, choosing to realign with yourself, choosing to realign with the version of you that you want to be. It's the choice in every moment to be compassionate with yourself. So it's not a destination, it's a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. But the consistent choice in choosing over and over again is so worth the effort. Because when we take care of ourselves, we can be more present for others. We can be more present for our life. We can be more grateful. And we can live our best lives from that place. Self-love gives us the foundation that allows the life of our dreams to manifest to us. So I leave you with my little sermon. That is all that I have for you today, but I would love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway from the episode? Did you learn anything? Have you ever felt like you were missing something or that you had a void that you were trying to fill? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your stories. I love connection. As I said, that is one of the pillars of my life I'm truly trying to cultivate. So send me an email at adriana@lovingmywild.com or send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook at lovingmywild. I'd love to chat. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect with you. So if this resonated with you in any way, please subscribe, please rate, please review. It's always the best kind of love that you could give besides self-love. And please share this episode with someone that you think would resonate with it because you never know who it could help. So as always, I'm sending lots of love and light your way. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. I'm always here for you. Have a wonderful day. I hope it's filled with lots of love, joy, excitement, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye. And that's a wrap, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on this messy journey of self-discovery. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Remember, you are worthy of all the love and all of the joy in the world. Life may throw challenges our way, but we have the power to navigate through them, learn from them, and come out stronger on the other side. Never forget that you are capable of amazing things, and I believe in you wholeheartedly. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an opportunity to embark on this wild ride with us. And hey, if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review. It makes my heart dance with joy and helps spread the word about the podcast. Got a burning question or topic you'd love to hear us dive into? Reach out to me on social media at lovingmywild or shoot me an email at adriana@lovingmywild.com. If you're craving more inspiration and connection, head over to our website at lovingmywild.com, where you'll find resources, show notes, and a community of fellow wild souls just waiting to cheer you on. And until our paths cross again, remember to embrace your quirks, find humor in life's absurdities, and most importantly, love yourself fearlessly. Stay wild, keep shining, and never forget how wildly capable you truly are. I'll see you next time. Bye!